2.
That'd be great. Maybe Chad ain't coming.
There we go.
Got a minute.
Or less.
Yeah.
And we're flashing time. There we go. It's like at 7 o'clock. We'll call to order the Seymour Common Council meeting for Monday, February the 10th, 2025. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to invite the Reverend Chris Broughton up for the invocation. All rise.
Father, we ask for guidance, integrity, strength for these leaders who have volunteered to come and to seek counsel. As Proverbs told us that for lack of guidance, whole nations fail. But Father God, that you've given us the grace to be able to come and meet with our city leaders. And Lord, I just ask that you would bless them right now, where they are, as they work, and Father God, as they carry out the business of this city. Thank you, Father God, for this privilege. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. Roll call, please, Mr. Bowes.
Mr. Beatty.
Here.
Mr. Terrell.
Here.
Mr. Hackney.
Here.
Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Davidson.
Here.
Mr. Lucas.
Here.
Mr. Fry.
Present.
6 accounted for, 1 absent.
Thanks, sir. So everybody had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting. If so, I'll entertain any motions related to.
I'll make a motion that they're approved.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Reports from committees, boards, and commissions.
Reports, Mr. Beatty.
Yes, we had a meeting of the ad hoc committee on Wednesday. It went very well. Appreciate everybody's participation, including the audience that was here. Some of the folks here tonight were present at that meeting, so appreciate all that. Got some good input. On Friday, Chief O'Brien had set up an informational meeting for us to meet with the vendors, and I'll let him report on that.
Can you do that now or through miscellaneous?
Depends. Do you have a request connected to your report? I'd do it under miscellaneous then.
Okay, we'll discuss it then. Yeah, we had a good meeting and came to some resolution on some stuff, so appreciate the effort.
Mr. Terrell, anything for reports?
No.
Mr. Hackney.
Yes, the Finance Committee met last week to discuss the effects of the House and Senate bills on property tax as they relate to the revenues, or relate to Seymour's revenues. Mayor Nicholson presented an estimate of the reductions in Seymour's revenue if the bills were approved as they stand now. And the thought was that these bills would be amended in the near future, so no further action should be taken until that time.
Should be tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow is when they're telling us that they will take some action on SB1. We should know more, after tomorrow. I know I was on the phone earlier with AIM, and they were saying that by Thursday they should have some updated numbers to look at. So
Is that coming out of committee or on the floor?
right now it is in committee, so
Okay.
we'll have to see what action they do take tomorrow. So
A lot of ifs, ands, and buts happening.
yeah, the House bill is the worst one of the two, but the Senate bill still has a pretty dramatic effect on us, so.
It's all gonna have a dramatic effect.
So, but again,
Is there,
no
is
more
there thought
tomorrow.
that the House bill will be amended too this week, or have you heard?
So the version that I had heard, was that they were going to try to get all of them down into one bill. That way there's one item that you're looking at instead of trying to look at pieces from
Well, that
three
makes
different
sense. They'll do
bills,
it.
so.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't remember the House bill number off the top of my head, 443 maybe? Nope, 1402. Senate bill was 443 and Senate bill 1, so.
Is that it, Mr. Hackney? Anything with reports, Mr. Davidson?
I do, the Industrial Development Committee met on January the 28th at 9 a.m. here. We discussed having a standing meeting on Mondays at 9 a.m., the same days as council meetings, if there's tax abatement items on the agenda for that evening. We discussed ordinance 36, bill 66, which we will bring up here as ordinance 3, bill 3. We did some, changes on that. Spoke about some miscellaneous business, and that's it.
None
Anything
for
from
me.
Mr. Lucas?
None.
None. Okay.
Okay, no public hearings now, we'll go to old business.
Old business, Mr. Beatty,
No,
Mr. Terrell,
No.
Mr. Hackney.
Yes, sir. I will make a motion to read ordinance number 2, council bill number 2 by title only.
Second.
Mr. Beatty,
yes.
Mr. Terrell,
Yes.
Mr. Hackney,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yep.
Mr. Lucas.
Yes.
Mr. Fry.
Yes.
Second reading of ordinance number 2, council bill number 2 for 2025, and ordinance amending chapter 35 of the Seymour City Code to create a stormwater depreciation fund, fund number 6503. Finance Committee, Mr. Hackney.
Yes, and this is something that, Reedy Financial told us that we needed to do. And, it's pretty explanatory, I think, so. Any questions, comments from council? Comments or questions from the audience? Hearing none, I will make a motion to pass ordinance number 2, council bill number 2 on the second reading.
Second.
Mr. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Terrell,
Yes.
Mr. Hackney,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson.
Yep.
Mr. Lucas.
Yes.
Mr. Fry.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2, council bill number 2 for 2025 has passed second reading, 601. Any additional old business, Mr. Hackney?
No, sir.
Old business, Mr. Davidson?
No.
Mr. Lucas?
Nope.
Mr. Fry?
Looks like we're headed into new business.
New business, Mr. Beatty?
No.
Mr. Terrell? Mr. Hackney?
Yes, I have one. I will make a motion to read resolution number 1, council bill number 4 by title only.
Second.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Terrell? Mr. Hackney?
Sleep at the switch.
Mr. Davidson?
Yep.
Mr. Lucas?
Yep.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Introduction of resolution number 1, council bill number 4. A resolution of the Common Council, City of Seymour, Indiana, approving a transfer from general fund to rainy day fund. Finance Committee, Mr. Hackney.
Yes, the city earned revenue on the general fund in 2024 from regular interest, money market accounts, short-term CDs, and funds from Indiana unclaimed. This resolution will move $762,122.64 from the general fund to the rainy day fund, and $8,714.13 from recovered monies from Indiana unclaimed from the general fund to the rainy day fund. And I would like to thank Clerk Treasurer Darren Bowes for ensuring that we get maximum return and earnings for our funds. So, any questions from council? Questions from the audience? Hearing none, I would like to make a motion to pass resolution number 1, council bill number 4 on first and only reading.
Second.
Second it.
Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Terrell?
Yes.
Mr. Hackney?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yep.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Resolution number 1, Council Bill number 4 for 2025 has passed first and only reading, 601.
And that's all I have, sir.
New business, Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to introduce ordinance number 3, council bill number 3 by title only.
Second?
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Terrell?
Yes.
Mr. Hackney?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yep.
Mr. Lucas?
Yes.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 3, Council Bill number 3 for 2024, an ordinance amending chapter 150, section 38 of the Seymour City Code, standards for ERA evaluation. Industrial Development Committee, Mr. Davidson.
Yeah, so this is, I'll take you back to October 2024 here. So we met back in October 14th of 2024 to kind of look over City Code 150.38. It's the city code regarding ERA evaluations. At that time, it was me, Councilman Hubbard, and former Councilman Story were on the committee. Kind of come up with some things we wanted to see. The original ordinance, I think, dated back to 1989 when it was last kind of touched. So at that time, we come up with the quality of life investment opportunity list. Kind of after consulting with United Way and Mr. Plump's office, when we met, we kind of determined that was maybe unnecessary because the United Way already does such things, and I didn't feel like we needed to step on their toes. So we then met back in January of this year. Mr. Fry is now on the committee, and we kind of discussed pulling the list stuff out because it's already been taken care of, and so we just came back to the table with a rewrite of pretty much the same thing, except what was struck in section A there about just taking out the opportunity list. Is that pretty much it on the head there, Mr. Fry? Kind of.
Yep, that's what I had made note of.
Any questions from the
It
council?
still does mention the quality of life in the,
Correct. That is a big thing that, and Mr. Plump also agreed we should keep that in there because that's kind of a selling point of, hey,
right.
we would really like to see you invest back into the community. And it's kind of what United Way does itself is they kind of already have this. So.
Yep.
Other questions?
I just comment, I've mentioned it before and I'll mention it again, could probably continue mentioning it. This is a good start, and I like this, that we need to change this ordinance because it's been what?
89?
89?
Mhm.
Yeah. My view is we need to expand it even more and come up with an application process.
Okay.
That kind of complicates issues a little bit on who's going to do it, whether the Industrial Development Committee does that or who. But I've got a wealth of material here that I've gotten off the internet. There's many counties in the state that do an application process for tax abatements. And I think it behooves us to consider that.
Okay.
To get control of that process, that we get the information that we need to make a proper decision on how we need to proceed. I will say too, that most of them that I've seen, a 10-year tax abatement on personal property in particular is an exception, not the rule. And that's the reason for an application process and a scoring system. I think it's kind of mentioned here a little bit with the quality of life thing, that would be into consideration, but there's a lot of other considerations that we need to take into it.
Is that aspect in a lot of those, the quality of life? Or something
Yes.
similar?
Yes. But along with that is a breakdown of wage scales, not just an average wage scale of the companies involved where they roll everybody into one average number. They break it out and they assign points to each one, and there's multiple criteria items that they consider. And so I think, I don't have issues with going ahead on this, but I think we need to come back and revisit the ordinance to include an application process at some point in time because, you know, we're just flying blind on what these numbers are and what they mean sometimes. The assessor's office, I spoke to her this week. She would like more detail with regards to general improvements. Sometimes they come through and it's just like, it's just one line about general improvements to office area, yada, 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 and then that's it. And she's looking for more specific detail in that regard. The auditor's office is looking for parcel numbers, probably particularly on real estate, so that she can track that better in her office. So, like I say, I've spent some time with it. I'd be more than happy to meet with you guys individually, or whatever to show you what I got.
We touched
Because there's a
on,
lot there.
we touched on that a little bit in discussion in our meeting, and I'd
Appreciate
like to
that.
see what you have,
Yeah,
just to see what you have.
yeah. Because, I mean, it's just a few forms. Got sample ordinances in there too. From all over, big towns, small towns, counties, all across the state. I mean, Whitestown, Pittsburgh, Greensburg,
Have you found anybody that just doesn't do it at all?
that doesn't do abatements.
Yeah. Have you heard of
I think there was one that I saw that they made it so restrictive that nobody would even want to do it. I will say too, that most of those that have an application process have a fee, an application fee associated with it, anywhere from $300 or $400 up to $5,000. So, once again, something to consider that would cover administrative expenses. Right now, what we're doing is just, you know, they're following code, Indiana code, and the basic stuff. And when you, you know, I'm not against tax abatements, but when you come up with a number, 2023 payable in 24 personal property abatements only for the city of Seymour, the assessed valuation was $117,069,090. That's 19 tax abatements. That translates into taxes, which I finally found the number for. Taxes abated in 1 year was $3.3 million. So, and Darren makes a good point, has made it to me on multiple occasions, you know, how many would still be here if they didn't get the tax abatement? I understand that argument. But I just think that we need to have more information on our part before we make a decision on how long we're gonna have a tax abatement and to what extent is it gonna be. It makes sense to me, and I just throw it out there.
Any other
But
questions?
I do appreciate this.
All right. Seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 3, council bill number 3 on first reading.
Second.
Mr. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Terrell?
Yes.
Mr. Hackney?
Yes.
Mr. Davidson?
Yeah.
Mr. Lucas?
Nope.
Mr. Fry?
Yes.
Yes.
That's a yes.
Just out of nowhere, yeah.
That's a yes.
Which is it, Brad?
I was looking at something down here. My bad, it's a yes.
Ordinance number 3, council bill number 3, passes first reading, 601.
I have nothing further.
Any new business, Mr. Lucas?
No.
Okay. Mr. Fry?
No, sir.
Okay, wasn't expecting that. Miscellaneous from council.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I would defer to Chief O'Brien to fill us in on what he's found out.
So, we had the ad hoc meeting, Wednesday,
Yes, Wednesday.
and then, so we had a Zoom meeting, and I think, Councilmember Hackney, Councilmember Lucas, and, Councilmember Beatty were on there along with the mayor and, Clerk Treasurer Bose. We talked to iTouch, which is currently the, fingerprint system for the county. And basically, I've put in front of you 4 mobile devices. That's the cost for 4 mobile devices. They mentioned a yearly software maintenance agreement of $19.80. Looking at the bill, that $19.80 I think is per device, so it'd be a $7,920 a year maintenance agreement on that. So there's a couple options that we had, but I think this is the better of the options. So we could have a cabinet at the PD that is hooked up to the state, but Jackson County would never know about what prints were in there. Option 2 is Jackson County purchases a server. That server would be the central hub for fingerprints, and then we could be on it, Caruthersville could be on it, the prosecutor's office could be on it. We would upload fingerprints because we are not affiliated with the state fingerprint system. The county would have to export the prints off of that server into their fingerprint machine, submit them to the state would run them, then they would come back to the county, and the county would then upload them back into the server. That system is $60,390 for just 4 mobile devices, and it's broken down $7,000 per device, or $7,750 per device, $500 for a camera, $19.80 for the software that goes in it, another $19.80 for some more software to go in it, a computer to run it, integration of $1,000, and then there was training, 1 printer. That was all we would get, and shipping and handling. So you can see the bill was $60,390. So I request the Finance Committee review the cost of the fingerprint scanners and provide the necessary funding for the fingerprint system, and that funding would be contingent on Jackson County Council and Commissioners providing a fingerprint server. That's my recommendation.
Did they change their estimate on what that server was going to cost?
So what was on the bill, $10,000, is the software only for that server.
Okay.
Somebody's gonna have to buy a physical hard server. Now, what does that cost? I don't know.
It's gonna be something a lot more than $10,000.
It is. But you know, I started looking. So the last server we bought, we have a server at the PD. We actually have 2 of them, but they run on Linux, and that's what Spillman runs on. And talking to the county's administrative guy, at one time the fingerprints were all in Spillman. What happened was they went to iTouch, and it runs on Windows. It does not run on IBM. So it just runs in itself inside there. So we paid close to $100,000 for that server to run CAD, police calls, fire calls, EMS calls. That server actually serves the whole county. And it was close to $100,000.
I would be interested to see how much each one of those documents, how much space it takes.
So looking at
and with that, then what's the capacity of the servers?
So the server requirement is a Windows 2022. So you got to have Windows 22 server. It's got to be a quad Xeon, 256 gigabytes of RAM and 10 terabytes just to run the fingerprints. So looking that up, they're about 20 grand for that with the Windows installed on it. So plus the additional 10. So they're probably around 30. I had somebody tell me probably closer to 50 by the time you get somebody to install it and some of the other requirements. There has to be secure tunnels into it, VPNs, I guess, or virtual machines into it. It's not just a regular server that we can buy. You got to go buy the government server that's got some additional stuff to it. So I know people have accused me of saying that you can just buy a fingerprint scanner, and I think Mr. Beatty will agree now after listening. You gotta have FBI standard fingerprint reader. You can't, I mean, your cell phone will do fingerprints, but you gotta have FBI, and the state of Indiana requires a palm print. It's one of the few states that require a palm print on their fingerprint, so you can't just get a regular reader. And that was, I said something about that.
But these will do both.
That will do both and take pictures. It'll do a mug shot in the field.
And as you mentioned it, your quote, this quote here is for four, which would put one in each quadrant of the town, yes?
Yeah, so what the plan would be is leave one station at the station. It was cheaper than the cabinet. The cabinet was $22,000 for just one cabinet at the station. This is basically $15,000 a piece, basically. So we could leave one at the station with the printer, and then we would have two on the east side of town and one on the west side of town.
This doesn't have mobile units in it.
That is the mobile
That
unit.
is a mobile
That
unit.
is.
That's a
you could use
pellet.
in the car for-
That is a Pelican case, 22 by 17 inches.
Carry on.
It's basically a carry-on luggage. So they'll pop it out, they'll be able to print right there in the back of the car.
So does the supervisor just hand that off every shift change then?
Yeah, so that, we used to do that years ago with, AEDs and stuff before we started buying them. That was the other reason I wanted to cut one extra one maybe in case somebody forgets
Well,
and
that's a
takes it
good
home
idea.
and stays in their car or whatever.
One could be down as well.
Yeah.
Things happen.
So therefore, there'll be 4 of them in service on each shift?
No, there'd be 4 total for the whole department.
Okay.
So we run,
There's 4 available each shift.
there's
If you
4
need
available for
Available
each
each
shift.
shift, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, so
If you were close enough to the station, you could take them there.
you could go to the
Use one
station and
there.
take them, or if you're out in the field, if you're far east, one of the guys that has it, we'll have to do training on it. I don't know how much training that is. I mean,
That's included in your
it,
quote.
yeah, well, train the trainer.
That's right, train
They
the
train the
I remember
trainer.
that,
They
yeah.
wanna train one person and then he goes and trains everybody. But, the plan is our east districts, I call it the east district. The east units are the busiest units. The west units and it's split by the railroad tracks. A lot of times we'll only assign 2 guys to the west and 4 guys to the east. So there'd probably be 2 on the east, 1 on the west, and 1 stationed at the station. And then this would also, I know it's morbid, but ever since the wreck of the girls for the college, Taylor University, we have to fingerprint all deceased people. So we would be able to do that with this. We'd be able to take it into the morgue and print instead of having to ink prints and then drive them to the lab. So. So that's where I'm at. Councilman Hackney, if you can come up with the money, I try to dig it out of my budget, but I just don't think I can.
I'll look.
So, but I still think it's contingent on the county putting their foot forward, and they said that they
And
would.
all the talks that I've had with them, they're insistent that they're gonna do it.
And the one nice thing we did find out, if they buy a server, they can connect, Jennings County could connect to it, Bartholomew County could connect to it, Washington County,
All the adjoining counties.
I think they said that there were 70 counties. They could actually join that server and dump their fingerprints in there. It'd be more than just the Jackson County database. It would be
Have the
little-
capabilities of doing that.
yeah, it has the capabilities of doing that.
We need a motion for finance committee to look at that.
Yeah, finance committee will take a look at it.
Okay.
Does that have to come back as a resolution or how's that happen?
Yeah, you'll have to do an appropriation on it. You'll have to have a public hearing to justify the spending and all that stuff, as you do with any other spending. So,
Do we need to set up something with the county or just make a phone call and talk or what do we do?
Just establish a commitment. Because they're committed.
Yep.
It's just a timing now. So,
yes, Doug.
Can I ask a question? So, this, Doug Greger, so this machine's gonna be in a police car. He's gonna fingerprint the person, then that fingerprint goes to the county server.
Mhm.
Then the county server sends it to the state.
No, they gotta manually
That's what I'm
export
saying.
it to.
So by the time you pull me over, me never having a driver's license, you're gonna turn me loose before you can get any information back from me, right?
That's what's happening now.
I'm just asking, so,
Unless you're in the county system.
yeah.
Unless
yeah,
you're
it has
in
to
the
go
county
state.
system, it takes,
I just clearing it up. I knew, it sounded like it was gonna take some time. It's not like you're gonna be able to pull me over and me not ever having a driver's license and take me to jail.
Eventually that database will get,
Bigger?
Yeah.
it'll get bigger.
And they'll know who.
And the history.
Yeah.
Fingerprints, that's the difference.
But, it will take, to answer his question, I talked to Chris Everhart. A lot of times they'll submit those fingerprints during the day. The state runs those in the middle of the night to the FBI. They don't run them during the day while they're doing gun permits and everything else. So he says usually in the morning is when they get those returns back. Sometimes it does take 2 to 3 days though to get the returns back from the feds. So,
but if it's someone from the county, it's immediate. It's already in the,
if you're in there, it would tell you immediately that is who that person is. And we will not be starting over from scratch. They can pull,
What
they
the
say
county,
6
what
or
the
7
county
years.
already has.
The county's already got 6 or 7 years worth of fingerprints in their hard drive. Those would be pulled over to that server.
that's good.
So, and then they also said if any of the counties wanted to join this server, all their prints would be dumped into that server also.
So you can pick up priors from,
Yeah, you could maybe pick up somebody from Jennings County that's been arrested and not in Jackson County.
Greg, did you put some money in the 2025 budget for this?
No.
No? I thought you did, but okay.
We've got, and I do have some federal seizure money. The problem is I'd have to see, might be able to buy the hardware, but that would be it. You can't have reoccurring fee. The feds say if you use their money, you can't have reoccurring fees. It's like, you can buy a car, even though you gotta put gas in it. They look at it differently, but there is some federal money that you can use to buy the hardware. You just can't use it to buy software.
But you could use it to pay for like service agreements and that.
Nope, can't use it to pay for certain, yeah, you can only, like, I bought a camera system. So you can use it to buy the system, and then the regular budget pays for the yearly or the monthly fee for that camera to be on. I did use it to pay for Celebrite, which is the phone downloader. So I bought, so the county and us go in halves on a cell phone downloader, and we get 40 unlocks. I paid for 20 unlocks.
Yeah.
So,
I do have one other question. What happens if they refuse to let you take their fingerprints? And that might be a Chris question.
I don't think they can refuse as part of the booking process of, there's some case law.
But if you're not booking them, like you stop
Well,
somebody.
technically you're booking them at this point, cause you're gonna take a mug shot and,
So if
and
you stop
fingerprints.
somebody that is driving without a license and has never received a license.
now this is gonna affect, so we'll be fingerprinting people that pass the school bus. They'll be getting fingerprinted and mug shotted. Driving while suspended, go to jail. DUIs go to jail. Leaving the scene of an accident. There's a couple misdemeanors in there that we will have to do. You can't
Okay.
just say O&Ls. We'll have to do all the traffic misdemeanors.
But it's just people who are accused of doing these things at that point, not
Yes.
people who have even been found guilty of doing those things.
Correct. That's how it is now. You take somebody to jail now, they fingerprint them before they're found guilty.
Yes, but they won't all be going to jail.
They'll be fingerprinted at the.
be
at the
fingerprinted and
traffic
released.
stop.
Right, and then let go.
Yes.
Not
they're let go at the county jail.
Let go with the promise to appear.
Yeah.
Treating average citizens as though they have been booked into the jails.
No?
It's called
No.
getting positive ID.
Positive ID.
Probably like that.
And because it's a short duration of time, the Supreme Court's ruled that it's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment as long as it's shortened in its duration. Now, I can't just drag people off the street and fingerprint them. That's against the law, but if you've committed an act that.
Or been accused of committing an act. For instance, I was stopped by police officers this summer running through a downtown park. And I didn't have, had I not had my ID on me, like if I just had my shorts and my running shoes and nothing else, I could have at that point been accused of committing an act because I fit the description of someone that day who had a beard and had been called upon by the police. I could have then been fingerprinted, mugshotted, run through a system, and then been determined I didn't commit any act except went for a job.
So we would have had to have probable cause to arrest you.
Well, I matched the description. That was what your officers told me that day.
Okay, so let's, so I'll explain this situation. So, officers got called at 7 o'clock in the morning, I think that was the time, to a domestic battery where a woman had been battered. The suspect, who was described wearing the same exact clothing that you were.
He must have been jogging that day too.
Well, he wasn't jogging, he took off running when the cops got there. And they found you 2 blocks away from it. They stopped you, they said, oh, it's you, it's Mr. Henkel, and they let you go.
Well, thankfully, one of your officers there did end up eventually knowing me. However, if it wasn't me and it was another person who just matched the description, so I'm not just looking out for myself, I'm looking for others in the same.
But we would have called the victim over to say, yeah, that's the guy who hit me. I mean, it's not like we arrested you. They stopped you, you've matched the description of the guy that just punched a woman in the face.
And no, I totally respect the victim. I'm just saying you're beginning to go down a slippery slope where now people who are not committing crimes are potentially.
No, that's not the case.
So that's not true, because we have probable cause to believe that you drove with no license.
What about the other misdemeanors that you referred to?
Passing a school bus?
That was one. Then you mentioned, and several others.
That's breaking the law, Tyler.
Those are all Indiana codes.
As they've been accused, but you're not, like, it's a slippery slope, and
No, they give you a ticket and you promise to appear in court and the judge makes a determination. The prosecutor and the judge makes the determination as to your guilt or innocence, not the police officer.
yes, and
The police officer just he notices an infraction and he issues a ticket. All this does is hopes to establish a positive ID of who they have stopped. Okay.
So you've sparked like 2 or 3 questions for me in the mix. One being, we had a ruling last year that required what was proof of identification, Greg?
So the Indiana court said that for driving, you only have to give your name, address, date of birth, or your driver's license.
Key being or.
So we had an officer ask a person for their driver's license 3 times, and the guy wouldn't give his driver's license, and so he was arrested for failure to identify himself on a traffic stop, which is legal. When they got to court, the judge threw it out because they didn't ask for his name, address, and date of birth, which is also a positive ID, according to the courts.
Okay. And then my secondary question, we've had some issues over the last 5 years related to the jail not taking, I'm going to call them suspects.
Yes.
If you have started the booking process, is that going to guarantee that they then have to take them?
No, this wouldn't be a booking process per se in Spillman. It would just be a fingerprint system.
Okay.
So that, I mean, they have rules, like, they're not gonna take somebody who's not medically cleared to go to jail, or, you know, they just have rules of who they can allow in. That was my concern with the other way, with the having the cabinet at the PD, they have to be booked. State police say when you're fingerprinting that person, they are, if it's running through their system, that person has been booked. So then we would have to run them through a booking process. If something came back, they are in the system, they would have to take them.
Okay,
at
so
that
this
point.
delays the,
This delays it because it's just going into the local server and not
not the state server. Okay, that helps. Any other questions on the topic?
I have another one. Okay, I have a gun permit, and they fingerprinted me. Are those fingerprints on that system?
they're on the state system,
But not on or the city?
not on the local, no.
Okay.
You'd have to rob the store and get caught.
No,
They're there,
but you can't use those prints for anything other than the gun permit system.
correct.
So,
No,
Yeah.
really?
That's a good clarification.
That's good.
And I think they're only on file for 5 days.
yeah, it's a short time.
It's a very short time that those fingerprints are on file.
Okay. Anything else from council?
No, I just urge finance committee to move with dispatch.
We'll have to look at it.
Miscellaneous from the audience?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Sure. How much did you just move from general to rainy day?
Well, it was a little under 800,000, wasn't it?
So I guess my question is, absolute worst case scenario, if the budget to fund what Greg just showed, is it possible, hey, we just moved, we could?
Just depends if you wanna cut into rainy day funds to fund it. That's up to finance to decide.
Okay, is that possible, is that feasible?
So when we started, and I'll skip ahead a little bit on my notes, Darren, I was gonna give you props on that. Because when we started, there was $6,000 in rainy day fund, and it had been there for over a decade. So to get it back up to a number that is there to protect us in the event that the state decides to cut major chunks out of our incoming property taxes, it's been an accomplishment, and the accomplishment credit goes 100% to that guy there.
Yes.
Because he has invested those dollars to be able to earn that interest, because there are only certain things that are allowed to be put into the rainy day fund. We can't just simply assign it out of general fund. It has to come in certain ways before we can put it there. So, but that is up to finance committee to decide whether or not they wish to move that, so.
Okay.
Other miscellaneous from the audience?
Chris, I know Chad's not here, but any update on the
No, sir. The code of conduct? No, sir.
No.
I've not been in contact with him.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that update. Yeah, I mean, I would just touch back on the idea of creating a Jackson County fingerprint registry. Sounds a little bit like little Orwellian, not gonna lie. How long until DNA becomes a part of that? I never thought that I would be at this podium speaking against Rick Meyer or whoever, or the police officers here collecting my fingerprints to keep here in Jackson County. Especially, would it be Class C misdemeanors? Would that be? Okay, so especially if basically somebody called them and said, hey, we just saw Tyler Hinkle walking through the back alley on some private property, and then they identify me, and based on someone's desire to kind of just get me in the registry, now all of a sudden I've been accused, they've identified me, and that's enough to say, okay, well, we're going to book you, write you a ticket, and you got to be here at this time. And now you're in the Jackson County Fingerprint Registry when later on, in fact, you are not found guilty of what they said you were doing because you had an alibi, you were somewhere else during that time. I mean, it's just like, it's kind of bizarre to think that we're just gonna
open ourselves up to everyone being in a Jackson County fingerprint registry. I mean, it's weird. I get the state has one, the FBI has one, like those things they're there, they're happening, right? In theory.
It's
you're gonna
there
do
for
these
people
scanners?
who have broken the law.
Right, but like
If
I
you-
just explained,
If you are
it could
arrested,
be used.
your fingerprints won't go in there unless you are arrested and given a ticket or.
Right, and I just
similar
explained
event.
one instance where somebody could quite literally say something that would require my
Would have
fingerprints
to
to go
be
in.
arrested for a
Right,
specific.
and in that instance, if somebody called, said that I was trespassing, and then when you brought them to me and they said, yep, that's him, would that be probable cause enough if I was even in the general vicinity to be said, yeah, okay.
So is there a sign posted, no trespassing?
Yep.
So, and you were
I was in the general vicinity and they identified me after the fact.
And they identified you?
Yep.
That'd be probable cause.
That'd be probable cause. But just like an instance in which I myself was a part of just this past year, where I matched the description, etc. Now I'm in the fingerprint registry.
That's good police work. in
Well,
my
yes,
view.
I understand that.
But they didn't arrest you, they didn't have probable cause.
Okay,
They
and we're
realized
not-
you were Tyler Hinkle, not
Right,
the guy they were
right,
looking for.
and we're talking about that past, but also these are possible scenarios as well that could just get somebody hemmed up in this case. And now for the remainder
The only
of.
person getting handcuffed is somebody who gets a complaint and summons. A complaint and summons is just like me taking you to jail, filing charges on you. A complaint and summons is you have committed, and I have probable cause to believe that you've committed a crime.
Yes, and there are many people who have had that, been handcuffed, given their summons, let go, and never had their fingerprints and everything submitted to the state because they never got booked in over at the Jackson County Jail. But that will now.
That's what we're fixing.
Yes, but then later found that they weren't guilty, and you're just creating more and more.
So what do you do
people in
about
that
somebody
system.
who's taken to jail for DUI, they're fingerprinted at the jail, they get released, they bond out, they go to court, and, I don't know, the intoxilizer was broke or something, and they get found not guilty.
Yeah,
Right?
they kind of
Their
got
fingerprints are
the
in the
short end.
system,
They
it
got the
shows
short
the
end of the
arrest.
stick as well, but we're creating another system to give the short end of the stick to even more people. And we just say, oh well, it's okay because we'll catch the people who we think are breaking the law.
That's why we have judges and prosecutors.
Okay, no, and that's fair. Let's just call it what it is. Like it starts to geared more towards a police state. Like let's call it what it is.
That's what you're calling it.
Let's call it what it is.
That's what you're
Okay,
calling it.
3 minutes.
Yeah, please.
Fingerprints are welcome to.
No,
Okay, so then it'll be voluntary. We'll start
Hit the
accepting the
gavel, man.
voluntary part of it.
3 minutes, Tyler.
Okay.
I gave you a little extra
All
because
right,
you
no,
were
I appreciate
answering.
it, man. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll start through my list a minute. Never mind, Chris Broughton.
Sorry, guys, I'm gonna speak in favor of, put the system in place. I was fingerprinted when I worked at a bank 3 times. I was fingerprinted when I taught school. The FBI knows who I am. I've had my picture taken on my driver's license. I've never had a mugshot, but I've had my picture taken over and over and over again for every company I've ever worked for. They've taken my picture and put it on an ID, and it's floating around out there in the ether. They absolutely know who I am. And I got a gun permit. They fingerprinted me again, And so I've been fingerprinted over and over and over again. And I think I'm not, sir, please don't take any offense, but I think it's naive for any of us to believe that our fingerprints aren't already floating around in the ether, and our mug shots are already floating around. If you guys had access to the technology, you would absolutely be able to identify anybody you need to identify. But obviously we haven't done that. That's what this is. I can remember when there was no internet. I remember dial-up, right? I remember when there were no servers out in the cloud, when there wasn't a cloud, right? Guess what? I had a bulletin board. I was the beginning of the cloud, right? Then everybody had one. Nobody had the cloud. I believe that us taking a step here in Jackson County to help other counties with, some of the elements that of identification that we need in order to more rapidly, I think it'll save a pile of money of just officers' time, right? It'll pay for itself. But the idea, guys, is that let's get involved in this technology because, pretty soon they'll connect those databases together. By the way, I don't know if you're familiar, but that's what invented the internet, was the Defense Department needing to connect machines together. And so, yeah, it is quite Orwellian. I agree with you. It's a little spooky in my opinion. But at some point, we have to hold our city, state, and government folks accountable through the ballot box. But I'm not resistant to the technology. I'm adamantly in favor of what you guys are thinking. It's a wonderful idea because it gets us in the place to participate. Thank you.
Well, I just traveled halfway around the world, and everywhere I went, they had me look into a camera, and everything was facial identification. That's right. If I looked in the camera, they said, okay, I was done.
Fingerprints are gonna be old
I was
school.
gonna say, and I didn't know the piece about your gun permit fingerprints going away after 5 days. I mean, which makes me curious about background checks though, like when you're applying for a school, do those go away or do they stay out there? I mean,
I think.
and again, you guys are just sparking a whole new rabbit hole for my mind to chase. So.
I do believe that, the NCIC for teachers, stuff like that, once they hit the FBI, they get a Henry classification and they are kept there. But, the federal government's ruled you can't have a gun registry. And so when you apply for your application and gun stuff, that's why they disappear after so many days. They do not want a registry. So they do allow ATF and the FBI to have it for a couple days so they can do your check. But once it's done, there is no registry. Actually, I think the only thing that they register is NFA firearms. That's it. That's the only thing they have a registry on.
Okay.
Greg, you mentioned also a mugshot to be taken with this process.
Yes.
Is that facial identification? I mean, I
Yeah,
just traveled out of the country last
We're
week
already
too.
doing facial recognition, all your driver's license. The reason that they have to, you get the paper copy
Not
first.
smile and, yeah.
Yeah, the reason you get the
Don't
paper
smile.
copy first is because they're doing facial recognition at the state to determine that you are Denny Fry and not Chuck Fry, your twin brother, or somebody else, or, back in the old days, you used to go in there and, if I had a brother who was a couple years older, I'd go in there and say, hey, I'm George O'Brien, and here's my date of birth or whatever. I'd get the driver's license with my picture and his information. So that's what they've cut down. Your passports all get facial recognition. That's actually how we caught the Charlie Holland, was facial recognition on a passport. So.
They know who you are.
Yeah.
I was surprised they didn't ask for I traveled out of the country last week too, and didn't ask for my passport.
No, just look in the camera.
Look in the camera.
Look in the camera.
You move on.
As soon as you're done. It's simple.
Okay, I'll run through my list of stuff. Again, Darren, all the credit goes to you on the rainy day growth the last couple of years. I'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks, but as I said earlier, we did have 6,000 in there as recently as 3 years ago. So, and had been that way for a long time. Next up, congratulations to the girls swim team for their first ever individual sectional title. First Dave Boggs sectional that wasn't shared with other schools. In 2011, they had a 3-way tie. This is the first one where they didn't. So
on top.
Yeah, what a good one there. Great events for anybody that didn't make it. It was fun to watch. Last thing on my list of stuff is shout out to dispatch at Seymour PD. The average answer time for 911 calls last month was 2.16 seconds. Seconds. Cool. So it took me longer to tell you that than it did for them to answer the phone and start the process. So kudos to your dispatchers. They do a darn good job over there. So That's it. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain motions to adjourn.
So moved.
Sounds like we're done. Meeting adjourned, everybody. Enjoy your night.